The Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course is located in Lexington, Ohio. This 13-turn road course has a little bit of everything: a hairpin, chicanes, elevation change, and high speeds. Tonight we begin round 2 of the virtual Mid-Atlantic Road Racing Series and the Washington, D.C. region component of the SCCA. And Finian, last week at Summit Point we had a banger of a race, a 72-minute first round that ended up with some incredible racing and incredible action. But this week we go to a little bit of a faster racetrack, a little bit more elevation change this week, and certainly it's going to be a good one here. A 30-minute race to end the night here this evening. Yeah, this is a very tricky track, and you notice too, if you saw in frame here, we're using the chicane version of this track, so it's not a completely straight run to the keyhole. It's a little bit of a chicane before they enter that corner. Yeah, of course, that chicane is going to be very important because we're starting over on that end of the racetrack here, Finian, and that's going to be incredibly difficult to navigate. But as we work our way down this long back straightaway, this is more than last week at Summit Point, a drafting racetrack. And these, especially the low-powered MX-5s, will be using this to slingshot move down into the next corner here. And this is going to be a very important corner towards the end of the race when we get down to the final laps. But you see Kenneth Hausil there in the number 23 car. Almost won the race last week, came up a couple spots short in that number 23 Mazda, and again this week, right now, sitting on provisional pole as we have about 15.5 minutes remaining in qualifying. Yeah, the guy I'm waiting for to put a time down is Gigi Alessandrini. He would in the 191. He's still on. He's on track for trying to set a time right now. But yeah, last week's winner in the MX-5 class did a fantastic job last week. Of course, Alessandrini from Cleveland, Ohio. So this is kind of a home course for him here, and typically races in the SCCA Solo Series and an ND Miata. So he's right at home here. And hey, Dominic, how are you? Good to see you in the box.
Doing great, thank you.
All right, well, we're just starting qualifying here about 5 minutes in, and this week we're at Mid-Ohio here, Dominic, and this racetrack a little bit faster than Summit Point, but a lot of elevation change here as well, something that Summit Point has a little bit less of. So how do the drivers have to navigate this racetrack in terms of putting the power down with more elevation?
That said, Ohio has notoriously been known as a handling track over a horsepower track, so even though they have a higher sustained top speed, the biggest challenges, especially for the Mustangs tonight, is going to be the ability to get the car load down for areas like the China Beach, which is getting up to the biggest elevation spot on the track, as well as down the back straight heading into the keyhole. And so they're going to really have to lean on those brakes in order to get the slow down. For the Miatas, track's really going to reward them because a much balanced car is going to navigate through the S's and jump turn better. So areas like a Thunder Valley heading up to the carousel is really where the Miata is going to shine. So it's a really good equalizer for the types of cars, and I think that in the end we'll see comparable lap times. And especially for the Mustangs, they're going to do better accelerating out of a lot of the duration corners here.
Yeah, especially. So the Mustangs, this is an interesting split here, Finian, because the Mustangs have a lot more power, almost double the power output from the MX-5. However, because they're so big and heavy, navigating racetracks, even with longer straightaways like Mid-Ohio, it equalizes the lap times. And right now, I believe the best Miata's lap time is less than 2 seconds off the best, Mustang. So lap times here are pretty close considering the size of the racetrack.
Yeah, it's kind of something similar to what we saw last week at Summit Point, where the Mustangs would dominate down the straightaways, but the MX-5s were able to pretty much keep up or even go faster in the corners. So a little bit of a dynamic that's still going to present itself here.
Absolutely. So we have about 13 minutes left in qualifying, and Paul Gibson right now in that number 31 Mustang is on provisional pole. Kyle Herbst in the number 89, currently in second. And I got to thank Dave Fitzgerald for putting together this beautiful document that gives me a lot of information about the drivers that it's good to see here. And I know Kyle Herbst in that Volt Mustang from Hudson, Ohio. Again, another local race for him. Races in autocross. He's been racing for 8 years and competes in the SCCA National Solo and Pro Solo Championships and drives my favorite car, the 2016 Scion FRS. And that's pretty cool information, and I got to thank Dave for putting that all together. But Herbst, driving a Mustang here this week, handles a lot less good than his FRS, which is probably closer to the Miata in terms of handling.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, both of them were pretty much usually put together in comparisons. because they're both pretty much the same kind of market for that car.
Very different race car here that he's driving tonight, though. In Mid-Ohio, Finian, not a lot of asphalt runoff area. Now, Summit Point doesn't have much of that either, at least in the iRacing scan version. But we look at this place versus a place like Watkins Glen that has some more of that. How do you drive this place differently, knowing that there's some sand traps that can catch you off guard on corner exit?
I think really you just kind of start driving a little bit more carefully, or I should say not more carefully, I should say probably try to use up a little less of the entire width of the track. You know, typically you see these guys run curb to curb or almost right next to the grass. You might see, especially in corners where that sand trap prevents it, it kind of is apparent. You might see them just save a little bit of space between them just in case they need that extra room to work with.
Absolutely. And I want to ask Dominic, when you're driving around a racetrack like this, do you prefer the asphalt runoff because it gives you a little bit of a room for mistake, or do you like the tracks that penalize you for going wide because it creates a more intense environment to drive in?
The driver, I think that having that little bit of constraint with the wind and not having as much runoff room will really make you think about the line and how you drive, because you have a lot more runoff than going into the corner. You know, you're not going to be thinking as much about your exit because you think, I have enough pavement, so I'm out of trouble if I go a little too wide. As if the track's a little bit more narrow at the exit, you're going to be really trying to tidy up your line to get the best run off the corner. So having just that little bit less to run off your car will really, I think, clean up your line as you go forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So the drivers like to have that little bit of constraint there on exit. But see, DJ Alessandrini, that number 191, I saw him practicing earlier this week, was extremely fast, but right now only P3 on the board. Now, that's nothing to be ashamed of. Third is certainly good, especially with the amount of Miatas we have here tonight, but Kenton Cook and Kenneth Hausiel better than him right now by a couple tenths of a second.
Yeah, definitely, but still tight between the MX-5 classes. Hausiel is just over the 8 by about 65 thousandths of a second, so very close.
We were talking about the Mustang versus MX-5 interaction. You can see on the left-hand side of your screen on the ticker, there's a lot of mix-up right now. Stephen Ott in the number 14 Mustang is currently sitting 15th overall, and there is 3 Miatas ahead of him. Louis Alessi, Don Manning, Steve Salisbury, and Alan Claffey also kind of mixed in with the MX-5s. Now, we will grid all together as classes, separate classes, but throughout the race, just like we had issues last week at Summit Point, going to be a little bit of a class mix-up, and that's going to create a very interesting traffic situation here.
Yeah, I definitely think so.
All right, less than 10 minutes remaining in qualifying. We're going to go to break real quick, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back here to SimTV. Finian had to grab his charger for his laptop, and I got 2 big monitors in front of me, and he's over in the corner with a little table and a laptop.
I hate this laptop so much.
He's buying a new one. But anyway, as we're watching, Andrew Pilata jumps to the top of the board with a 1:34.0, and that's the quickest time we've seen so far in qualifying. And remember, last week was the winner for the Mustang class, so that number 96 car going to be very fast again here tonight.
Yeah, and by a decent amount, too. He's 3 tenths ahead of Paul Gibson in the 31. And then another tenth and a half ahead of Kyle Herbst, so big gaps in the Mustang field.
You see Brian Saab here trying to work around the inside of the 195 Miata, and that is John Sainz there. And you see a little bit of an awkward scenario here. You have to really judge your corner entries. These Mustangs, in comparison to the brakes on the MX-5s, we talked about this last week at Summit Point, the MX-5s can brake almost better than the Mustangs. They're so light that they can outbrake the Mustangs, and you have to really keep in mind, this isn't like a prototype versus GT3 situation where the prototypes can outbrake the other cars. it's more about the straightaway speed and less about the cornering.
Yeah, I was gonna say because these cars are pretty much where in the prototypes are pretty much better than the GT cars in every way, shape, and form. So they can beat them in any single part of the track. These guys, like we've been talking about last broadcast as well, Mustangs are better on the straightaways, but not so much in the corners, and that's approaching them and going through the corner itself. So that's where you see the MX-5 start to come into their own.
And as Dominic mentioned, this track is notoriously known for being more handling-based and not so much horsepower-based. So again, even though there's a long straightaway here, this back side of the course here, really, if you take a look at my track map, because I'm not super familiar with Mid-Ohio's corners, really anything from turn 4 off to turn 11 is really all handling-based. And as you work your way through the S's in Thunder Valley, there's a lot of turning going on, a lot of changing of direction, and the Mustangs are not very good at that. All right, so just over 6 minutes remaining in qualifying now. Paul Gibson at 31 still sitting second. Good qualifying session for him. Let's jump back up. Kenneth Hausil has jumped to the top of the board in the Miatas with a 136.3. Kenton Cook still in second place. DJ Alessandrini in third. And Chip Disaroon there in the number 75 Miata, setting fourth in class and 19th overall.
Yeah, so he's, like you said, fourth in class. He's having a good run. Here's Sam Scott in the 98. He's currently 8th in class.
And working our way down through turn 4, 5, and 6 now. And take a look at the car counts right now. 33 cars on the grid. And I mentioned prior to the broadcast here that we were expecting slightly lower car counts here this week, but not by a whole lot, it turns out.
We're only missing maybe 7-ish.
Yeah, which, again, Mid-Ohio typically not participated very well within the iRacing simulation service. So this is a very good turnout, especially as we head to some more popular tracks in the coming weeks. So Mid-Ohio, very great race course to race on, especially in lower-powered race cars. The only experience I have in here is the Mustang and the NASCAR Xfinity car. Very similar, although the Xfinity car obviously is about double the horsepower. But again, the Harris number 98, Sam Scott working his way around.
Yeah, I was going to say, one of my main experiences, I love taking the Indy car around here. That's on pretty much the opposite end of the spectrum, where it handles like a dream, as opposed to the stock car we have to wrestle it around. Yep. But yeah, so like you said, like we're talking about the field, we have 20 Mustangs here, and I believe 13 MX-5s that'll consist of the grid. So a lot more Mustangs than MX-5s. Yeah,
and I think that's, we see the 98 Sam Scott slamming the tire barrier there on corner exit and getting clipped by another machine. I think that's going to happen a lot here. The Mustang probably is the easier car to find speed with. The MX-5, you have to kind of balance on the edge of grip. Yes, it's tail happy and you can slide it around a little bit, but precision is a little bit more necessary when driving the MX-5. The Mustang's more of a brute force car. You can slide it into the corners and whip it around and it'll take it. The MX-5, you can lose some speed doing that. Anyway, so about under 5 minutes remaining in qualifying now, and Pallotta still holding the pole in the Mustang class. And Dennis Barrett, the driver of the number 12 car, haven't talked about a whole lot about him so far, but running 10th in class for the Mustang.
Yeah, so he's going to be qualifying pretty much midfield. He's going to have a solid day. I have a little bit of traffic to work to try to get to the front, but he's going to be hoping for the best.
And from Columbia Station, Ohio, so another guy that's from the recent, or the immediate area here at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. So again, another autocross driver, competes in SCCA time trials and SCCA solo competition, and drives an E46 M3. So again, a car that's not that far off from a Mustang in terms of size and weight. And he says his note here is, I'm actually a robot and only programmed to synthesize human emotions.
Is that an emoji accent?
I suppose. So a little bit of humor there from Dennis Barrett in that number 12 as he slides off course there, our side of the racetrack.
Yeah, pretty much. I think most people are going to be pretty much happy with their laps. They had 20 minutes to really put one in, unless they really didn't feel happy with it or feel like they can get just a little extra speed. They might see some guys start to make their final runs.
All right, so we're working now to the end of qualifying here. So, all right, Dominic, I want to ask you another question relating to qualifying here. At Summit Point, racetrack's a little bit more narrow than Mid-Ohio, so is qualifying less important here than it is at Summit Point, or do you think it's just about the same?
I'd say it's about the same, and off of that, there's a lot less opportunity for passing, especially do you get past turns 2 and 3 here. It's a very technical section, and in fact, narrows up lots, so especially with bigger cars like the Mustang, it's going to be really tough to make any kind of move in the middle of the lap. So really using the power of the Mustang on the straights, the 2 long straights we have here, really where you're going to gain your position. And then in terms of grid spot, I think once you get, so from the drop of the green, you're going to want to really try to find somebody just to push into the first turn. And then somewhere to Summit Point, how we talked about the draft, can really work here as well. And factor of the draft gets a little bit diminished within the technical parts, the S's and the carousel, but finding a good partner off the bat and sticking with them throughout the race really benefit, especially the Mazdas here.
All right, so I want to thank Dominic again for that insight there. So yeah, so I agree. I think that the middle section of the racetrack, Finian, well, very technical and kind of reduces your passing opportunity. So Finian, I want to ask you this question. You're in the Mustang. We have one lap to go, and you're right behind the leader. Where do you make your move? I say you got to make it in the first sector of the racetrack, but for you, where's your move?
Honestly, I would kind of have to agree there. There's not really many other places. I mean, you got the keyhole there. That's a nice hairpin to really plant to move, and then this upcoming corner, which I believe is turn 4. Okay, yeah, so turn 4 up there. You can see right ahead of the camera. That's another prime place as well to make a pass.
Yeah, turn 4, that right-hander right in the center of your screen. And again, that's probably your best passing opportunity other than the keyhole. And again, the corner names, I don't know if they're going to be a little bit off because we're looking at a non-chicane version of the racetrack. I don't really know if they consider the chicane a corner or not here, but as far as I'm concerned, it's a 13-turn racetrack. And if we're not going to count Watkins Glen's chicane as some corners, NBC, then I guess we won't count it here either. But qualifying now, a minute left remaining in here, and Andrew Pilata still on pole, and he's pulled off the racetrack. He seems satisfied with that. And Kenton Cook in the number 8 has jumped to the top of the board in the Miatas.
And hasn't done it by much. He's only done it by 19 thousandths of a second. But Josio, it doesn't look like he's on the track, so he can't really compete with that, so he's going to be staying in second.
And DJ Alessandrini third in that number 191 car, still out on track in that Red Bull Miata, trying to make up any time he can. And again, I really think this is probably the guy to beat here tonight, even though he hasn't quite had the pace in qualifying. His racecraft is amazing.
Yeah, I would say remember he drove up through the field at some point. He did not start up front. So he's again really, like you said, really good racecraft in that 191. And I'm going to expect him to march up to the field. Doesn't have much to do with it. If anything, he's going to be starting third.
Yeah, actually, that's a great spot to be starting, and especially with double file starts. Finney, you're going to be starting right behind that leader and have a good run down to the first couple corners. So qualifying concluding here, and barring any drastic measures here at the last minute, it looks like Pilata and Cook will be your winners of the qualifying session and be your pole sitters for this 30-minute sprint race here tonight. Again, the race distance less than half of what we were last week. And that's significant here, Finian, because last week we had a lot of time for the race to play out. We had a pit stop. Here tonight, it's just going to the finish.
Yeah, definitely. So you see Alessandrini crosses the line. Wasn't able to improve that last lap. He was 4,000 slower on his previous lap. That's very consistent right there. So
a little bit of a rub there to the pole sitter on an exit of the racetrack there. But all right, qualifying's over here. We got about 2 minutes left to break this down. And again, your running order, if your starting grid will be on the left-hand side of your screen right there. Again, classes, the yellow is the Mustang, the blue is the MX-5. So again, right now, starting the race, looks like we'll have 33 cars on the grid. Looks like everyone's here and ready to go. John Sainz in the number 195, the slowest of the cars on the racetrack right now, about 11 seconds off the pace. And I have a hunch that he didn't get the lap he needed to get.
Yeah, same thing for Calvin Wong as well. Put in a pretty slow lap notably slow to everyone else. I think they just kind of wanted to just put a lap in. And they prefer to start in the back of the field. For the Miatas, they don't really have to do much work. They're starting 12th and 13th, so not that much traffic to work through.
Yep, so checkered flag in the air here, so no drivers can start a lap. There's just enough time for drivers to complete the lap that they have started. And it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of guys still making time on the racetrack. The only one that I can see right now in the Mustang category is the 14 of Stephen Ott. And working his way around, turns 4, 5, and 6 down the hill. And he's got a MX-5 in the way that's going to hurt his lap time there. I'm trying to see what race car that is. It might be the 7 of Zach Ru. Nope, that's not him. That's maybe Chip. Nope. Calvin Wong in the 100. Huh. Yeah, that's right. The mint green colored car. But see, that's going to trap Steven behind him here. And I'll get around him without too much drama there.
Yeah, I guess. I'm not sure if they're actually finishing up a valid lap or if they're just kind of using up the rest of the time for practice.
He's booking it pretty good here. So he might be trying to put in another lap. Again, Ott will be starting 8th on the grid if he doesn't improve. And this last corner is so tricky in these big, heavy race cars.
Yeah, he pulls it into pit road.
Yeah, that'll be it for the 14 of Stephen Ott. Again, your starting order on the left-hand side of your screen, and we'll roll it across the bottom here in just a moment. 30 minutes on the grid here. And we have 2 minutes to let everyone get on the grid and ready to race. But it's going to be a fun one here tonight, Finney. There's going to be high-intensity action. 13 corners, and I think all the drivers are going to be bombing down into turn 1, trying to get every bit of track position they can early while the cars are still bunched together.
Yeah, and notably, too, it's significantly less time than the race last week, 42 minutes less. So over half, double less amount of time. I don't know how I was trying to word that, but anyway, less than half of the time to work with here. So it's going to be pretty much a sprint from here to the finish. and everyone's going to be gunning it for positions, especially early on.
We want to thank everybody for watching here on SimTV. This is, again, the second round of the Virtual Mid-Atlantic Road Racing Series. And again, the Washington, D.C. region component of the Sports Car Club of America joining us here tonight again. And we have 5 more weeks of racing action coming up. And there's going to be some good ones on there. I'm especially excited for Watkins Glen. That's our local, our racetrack that I'm excited for. But Mid-Ohio here tonight in Lexington, Ohio. And this is the home track for a lot of race car drivers here this evening. And they're very familiar with this 13-turn road course.
Yeah, notably too, next week we're heading to Sebring with the GT3 cars. So
I love Sebring.
Yeah, so big change in pace for these guys. You go from the Mustangs and the Miata to the GT3 machinery.
Yeah, and I believe there still is going to be Mustangs and Miatas still out on the racetrack too. They're just adding the GT3 class, if I understand correctly. Which, that's a very interesting class structure there. If we take a look at the schedule, Finian's got it pulled up.
No, that is a GT. That is a GT3 only.
GT3
round.
only. Okay,
yeah.
so
but for the 2.4, that's going to be really
right.
fun race. That's going to be the GT3 machinery as well as the Mustang and MX-5.
Yeah,
so a lot of cars.
And again, that's a huge difference between the GT3 cars and these cars here. Is that the GT3 cars are paddle shifted transmissions, and here tonight, all H-pattern traditional manual gearboxes, heel toe downshifts, and clutch upshifting. So very different kind of race car. A lot more downforce in those machines. But as we roll off here on our pace lap. We're about ready to go racing here. And what's next week, Finney? Oh, that's, like you mentioned, Sebring. What's the race distance? Do we know? It might be a little bit longer. We'll have to double check on that. Paul Gibson will be rolling off second, the 31 car, and Andrew Pilata starting out up front as we come through the carousel onto the front straightaway. And green flag flies. Contact between the leaders, the 31 and the 96, getting together as we head down towards turn 1. A frantic start for the Mustangs.
And the 89's going to go to the inside. He's going to take the lead. That's Herbst.
Wow, Herbst, an incredible move to the inside. Contact, Pilata goes around.
Last week's winner. He's going to get involved in a spin. Looks like he's going to keep it going, but is all the way in the back of the field now.
Yeah, it might have some front-end damage as we see the Mustangs working their way through the chicane here, heading down towards turn 2, as we see the entire field some side-by-side. That's Dave Fitzgerald on the outside. And Pilata with some front-end damage as the MX-5 field begins to work their way down into the corner. And it looks like Kenton Cook in that number 8 has jumped out to an early lead, and they're already spread out, running over a cone there on the backside of the racetrack.
Yeah, they're already spreading out again. These guys start with the Mustang, so they just start behind them.
Contact, the 8 car goes around. The leader spun. Contact again with the 23 of Kenneth Hausil. And just like that, Kenton Cook pushed back to 5th spot.
And a lot of chaos early on in this race, and you pretty much see why they don't start them on the traditional starting line there. There's a huge amount of contacts going on.
And Kyle Herbst now in the 89, your leader in the Mustangs. Paul Gibson and Forrest Landy second and third. Landy's looking to get that second spot away. Let's check back in with the MX-5s. They head down towards turn 4. Side by side, DJ Alessandrini to the inside of Hausil, not able to get that done.
And notably, he has some damage to the front end of his nose, so that might hurt him depending on how bad it is.
Yeah, a lot of damage on that 191, as you mentioned, Finian. And these cars aren't super aero-sensitive, but it certainly doesn't help. You see Kenton Cook really trying to, as we see another car go around. That's the 56 of Richard Spicer, spun in the middle of the racetrack. Oh, and gets drilled by the 140 of Travis Trussell there, and that's some huge damage to the 56.
Yeah, as they went through the S's there, that's probably one of the worst places to get spun around, as you're pretty much, guys are coming up over a hill.
He's going to spin out again, and that'll probably be terminal damage for that 56 car. Jumping back up to the Mustangs, we've completed 1 lap already, and Kyle Herbst out to a 4/10 of a second lead over Gibson and Landy. Ido Waxman behind. And they're all strung out at this point just a little bit. You see Jeff Jacobs, some huge front-end damage to that 38. And right in front of him, Grego Badia there in the number 66. Some rear-end damage. I think we can piece that one together.
Yeah, definitely. So it really just everyone's so close together. And this is a pretty tight track. So when you have 20 guys all starting within about a second or two of each other, there's going to be a lot of chaos, especially considering how big these cars are.
And the Miatas bunched back up again. Chip Tisharoon there in the 75, leading just by 2/10 over Hausil. A lot of front-end damage on the majority of these front-running cars. You see Zach Rubin dropping a wheel off track there at the exit of the keyhole.
Yeah, Tisharoon sitting for pretty good points today. Finished third last week at Mid-Ohio. So right now he's leading. Again, the MX-5s are stuck in a big group. And you see Hausil now looking to the outside as they head into turn 4. Almost dooring him. Disharoon looks like he's going to get it, though. Here comes Alessandrini.
Door to door through turns 4, 5, and 6. Alessandrini not able to hold that line, but he'll try again. Tries to stick the nose up the inside, but won't be able to get it done. So, Dominic, we've seen some early drama here tonight. A lot of front-end damage to some of these race cars. How do you change your strategy if you get any damage? Do you come in and fix it, or do you just stay out and try to work with what you have?
In this 30-minute race, which is significantly shorter than the one we had last week, I think you make the best of what you can with the position that your car's in. Here with some of the long straights you can get in the draft, which diminishes the effect that missing bodywork or build-up Everlast can have on your advantage. So I think being in line with everybody will help you and don't lose too much of a effective speed by having bodywork flown off.
All right, so Kenneth Halcyon looking for the lead now on the MX-5s to the inside through turn 1. Looks like he'll jump the curb and take it away from Chip Disharoon, and he'll run away with the lead. And we got a little bit of drama up here in the Mustang category. There was some pushing and shoving going around, but looks like everyone's got it sorted out now. And we head our way down towards turn 4 again, and there's a lot of Mustangs here, 20 on the grid, Finian. Yeah,
and you see also, just kind of a watch, Andrew Pelota, he's currently in 11th in class and overall as well, so he's trying to recover from what happened to him earlier.
Yeah, and I noticed not a ton of damage on that car. Yeah. I thought he would have more, but that car looks okay to me.
Yeah, I think he has a little bit on the left rear.
Yeah, where he got turned. A little bit on the left front as well.
Yeah. So, but definitely nothing that should really hurt him. As we cut back to the MX-5 field, you see the top 5 pretty much broken away from the rest of the field. They're going to be having their own little fight. And that's what we're talking about with the drafting with these guys. These guys I don't think are going to be separated from each other for a while.
Yeah, Alessandrini was able to get around Disharoon and move himself up into second. So just like last week, Halcyon and Alessandrini battling for the lead 5 minutes into this race. And even with the front end damage, Alessandrini is really pushing that car hard.
Yeah, he's really driving the wheels off that thing as he's trying to make a pass on Halcyon now as they go through Thunder Valley and up towards the carousel.
And right on the rear bumper. You got to be careful not to run into the guy in front. Thankfully, these cars have brake lights. Unlike when NASCAR Xfinity comes here, they have to work without those. But fortunately, they're all still in working condition after the contact we had on the opening lap. And it looks like Alessandrini might have a run for it here, heading down into turn 1. He might sit on it, though. Nope, looks like he's going to peek out. Take a look down into turn 1. Will he get alongside? Good enough to make a pass? He will. Will he jump the curb on the inside? Yep, he does. Up and over the top of the curb. And side by side towards the chicane.
Yeah, that's the thing you got to be careful to. You don't want to bounce off from the curb in such a way where it launches you into the other car. You see Alessandrini trying to get behind Halcyon as they go through the chicane. And it looks like he's not going to be able to make the pass.
So intense action here in the MX-5 category. Mustangs are relatively sorted out, but we do have a battle back here for, it looks like, 16th place. That's Francois Brou and Louis Alessi. And Alessi will give that spot away. And jumping back up towards the front, Gibson and Landy are nose to tail. These guys have been like this for most of the race.
Yeah, see that they've also kind of started to break away just a little bit from the rest of the field, the top 3. Still separate, still a second between them, but close nonetheless for these guys.
And Kyle Herbst still leading now by about 0.6 of a second. Has not really extended that lead too much as Gibson and Landy are keeping him in check, but that 89 car looking real good so far. So let's jump back to the MX-5 category, and again for the lead 4-car battle here with 23.5 minutes left. Side by side, Alessandrini goes up the inside, tries to get alongside Halcyon. Halcyon gets wide over the curb, drops the wheel off track as we head through Thunder Valley.
Yeah, you saw that he got a little bit loose. That lost him some momentum, but Alessandrini really doesn't have anywhere to go in this windy section of the track. It's constantly changing from right to left, so it's really hard to plant the car and make a pass as the corner pretty much changes direction by the next corner.
And remember how agile these MX-5s are. They can really chuck them around a lot, but if you're Alessandrini, you got to be careful because when it's that light, it doesn't like to stick to the racetrack, and you can certainly get yourself out of shape too quickly to recover. And oh, looks like, excuse me, we got Ido Waxman. Looks like they've dropped down the order. Let's go take a quick look at what happened here. Looks like just too much power on the exit of the keyhole here, Finney, and that's very easy to do.
That's really unfortunate for him. He looks like he dropped from about 4th place all the way back down to 14th. So as he's trying to get it looped around.
Yeah, so down the order very quickly for that number 28 car. We'll head back live. Still running a little bit wide there as we'll head back up to the Mustangs. And Landy, I don't think he's satisfied running in second here. No. He sees that number 89 pulling away just a little bit in the Mustang category and wants to get around Paul Gibson.
Yeah, Landy again finishing second last week at Summit Point, had a fantastic race, was just beaten by Pelota. But now again sitting, looking at for a good position in the points. He's in third again, wants to try to go for second and even the win if he can.
And jumping back in the middle of the MX-5 battle, there's Don Manning, the number 92 Mustang, who is currently 20th for the Mustangs, and kind of right in the middle of the battle, and actually broke up MX-5s enough to let Kenton Cook get back around Alessandrini for second. And that 8 car, that bright pink Pepto-Bismol looking thing, is charging back up to the front.
Yeah, I was going to say, he has probably the least amount of damage out of our top 4. Maybe I think Disharum probably has that sealed, but yeah, he has slightly less damage than the guys around him, so that could be working into his favor.
And heading towards the carousel here as they work away towards turn 1 once again, and Alessandrini looking aggressive, trying to do the crossover on corner exit, unable to get the run to do it. And something transpired here, Finian, where Kyle Herbst has jumped out almost 2 seconds in front of Gibson and Landy within a lap here. Yeah, and I think it's those two guys as they're fighting side by side. I think them fighting is starting to make them lose time. But there you see the 4 of Landy. He's going to dive to the inside of Gibson. He's going to take second place. That was a deep dive, and it's going to let Gibson take another run back at him here. But it looks like Gibson, as they head out of turn 5, there he secured it. So now he's going to try to set his sights on Herbst. And again, has a decent amount of time left. He's got 20 minutes to go left in this race to chase down 2 seconds. I think he can potentially manage that if he's got good enough pace. Yeah, so Dominic, another thing I wanted to ask was if we got Landy and Gibson trading spots like this, you know, a place like Summit Point last week, it was a little bit easier to help each other catch the leader. But in a place like this, when there's so many technical sections, is it harder to work together to go get the leader, or is it something you just have to figure out?
I think drafting definitely helps at any track, especially on these long straights. Here, as opposed to Summit Point, a lot less time, I think, to gain back momentum in lost ground. So see, once you've fallen off the pace, it's really hard to gather that back up. So that's going to be the big challenge for us following the leaders as we get deeper into this race. Yeah, so Kenneth Halseal, as we were watching, dropped down a couple spots, and the battle for the lead has changed from Halseal, Cook, and Alessandrini to just Cook and Alessandrini, as Kenneth Halseal has dropped about 1.3 seconds off of that group. And looks like there's some right front headlight damage to that number 8 car, and I can probably guess, I'm not sure if that was there before, but that might have just come just now. No, that was there before. He had, I think that was from the lap 1 incident when everyone kind of got bunched up together. But yeah, got a car smoking in pit road there. Francois Brou. Wow, huge damage to that Mustang. Let's go back and figure out what happened. I'm trying to figure out what on earth he hit to cause that much damage. And you can see that the car is completely clean till that happens. So let's see what happened here in the carousel. Oh, some brakes going really heavily on that Mustang, and then comes up off the corner, it gets loose and oversteers straight into the Armco and slams that metal, and that'll be it for that number 69 car. And some drama back out on the racetrack again, working through some Mustang traffic here, or the other way around. And it's getting very sketchy here. There's Steve Salisbury behind all this, trying to work his way through Chip Disharoon, and now taking his time here is Salisbury. Lifting, you can hear him lifting off the throttle and just being very patient with these MX-5s. Yeah, because he's got the 3 leaders pretty much in front of him in class, so he knows that they're going to be fighting for position. And that's one of the hardest things as the faster car, trying to make sure you go through that battle, because they're all going to be moving, all those cars are going to be moving all over the place. To see Steve run off the track there. And you see Halseal, wow, sliding the race car to get around him. He took that opportunity and ran with it. Slide jump on a road course, didn't think I would see it. And Alessandrini to the lead. Takes it away from Kenton Cook. Speaking of the leaders, too, the gap from the Mustangs is closed down by a second, as Landy's gone from 2 seconds to 1 second now. So he's really starting to make some pace up on Herbst. Yeah, last time by, it was actually about 1.4 seconds quicker, so Herbst must have made a mistake there, because that was uncharacteristically slow for the leader in that Volt Mustang. So Forrest Landy really trying to make up the ground here with 18 minutes left. We're almost halfway through this race. That's how quick it's going. Yeah, it's really starting to fly by, and that just kind of shows you how much these guys cannot make a mistake. And we go back to, where's Pelota? He's currently in 7th, made up quite a bit of ground so far. He's actually trying to make a pass here on the inside of, I think that's Richardson. Yes, that is. They head down into turn 4. There you see him. Richardson actually looks like he let him go, and he's actually got a fight now. Stephen Ott behind him. Yeah, Daniel Richardson from Durwood, Maryland. Road races in real life, and has been doing it since birth, he has noted, and races in the SCCA Hoosier Super Tour. A little side-by-side action here. No stranger to that. And I believe he drives, if I can get this out correctly, a 2010 Camaro. So kind of a very similar car in terms of the build of the Mustang. So we got one around. Gibson. Gibson, who was your 3rd place runner. Yeah. Huge damage on the nose of that 31 and major race implications here. Yeah, that thing is dented up. He's definitely got some required damage. Oh, for sure. That car is absolutely totaled. And just like that, a competitive race car torn up here. Let's go back and take a look at it.
And this is kind of what happens when these guys are pushing so hard, especially out of this corner.
Yeah, just up over the top of the rumble strip and slams the tire barrier, and that's all it takes. Just a little bit of a bobble coming up over the top of the curb. We'll ride on board with them.
Yeah, again, that's all it takes, just one little mistake.
And again, the curbs here are very flat, so when you get up over the top of the curb here, you dig through that grass on the other side and you put the power down, you just slip, and that's race over for the 31.
Yeah, and the fact that these Mustangs weigh so much is that once they start spinning or sliding, you're kind of screwed. There's not much you can really do to try to save it.
And they don't really react very well to changes in direction, so if you do get the wheel countersteered the right way, they'll snap back and throw the weight to the other side, and creates a lot of drama anyway. We go back up to the lead. Kenton Cook now within 0.4 of a second of Alessandrini for that MX-5 battle.
Yeah, it looks like there hasn't been too much drama ever since Alessandrini was able to... Or actually, no, Alessandrini actually passed Cook.
Yeah, a little while ago.
So he got up there. It looks like Cook hasn't really put too much of a challenge. And again, these guys could probably just kind of hang out here or just stick in the draft of Alessandrini for the rest of this time, because it looks like they're kind of going to be staying in that pack for now.
Jumping back to the Mustang battle, now working through some lap traffic is Kyle Herbst. 0.9 of a second, it's the lowest the lead's been, the smallest gap we've seen since the beginning of the race, and Forrest Landy trying to chase him down. Again, that number 4 car very quick last week. I believe we talked to him after Summit Point, and chasing down that 89 car extremely quickly.
Yeah, Herbst, again, was involved in a lap run wreck at Summit Point, was taken out pretty early in the race, so he's come back now, is trying to get the win here, but Landy's trying to put a dent in that hopes. And
Forrest Landy from Salt Lake City, Utah, who also rode races on the real side of things and drives a Jeep and a Mazda. And he notes that he's a, quote, a washed-up semi-professional racer. I disagree about the washed-up part. He's running pretty quick here tonight.
Yeah, 50, notably there, too, it said he's been racing for 15 years, which is almost as old as I am, which is kind of scary when you think about that.
Yeah. So Landy trying to chase down Kyle Herbst and steal a win away here. We're about halfway through this race, 14 minutes and 56 seconds remaining, and everything's kind of stabilized out for now. We got a battle for, looks like this will be 6th place. Stephen Ott and Daniel Richardson battling for that spot in the Mustang category.
Yeah, and they've been kind of fighting. Actually, Richardson was behind Ott, so he made a pass here. Ott trying to return the favor and try to get around him. This is a nice fight for 6th place. You see Ott look into turn 4, not close enough to really make a dive, and Richardson's going to hold.
You see the brake rotors really glowing in that 14 car. We talked about this last week at Summit Point, but I think even more so this week the brakes are working out here, especially at the end of these long straightaways.
And notably, too, again, Mustang is closed up now under 0.5 of a second. So Landy really closing in now.
And a battle for 8th, too. Michael Monaghan and Dennis Barrett, separated by about 0.3 of a second. Both those red Mustangs, the 0.5 and the 12. About 13.5 seconds behind the leaders. MX-5 category is pretty split up right now in Mustang traffic. So everyone's pretty spread out along there. But you mentioned it, Finney, in the lead closing up now. 0.4 of a second, Landy and Herbst.
Yeah, these guys are starting to close up. And I'm actually kind of surprised. I thought Herbst would have been able to at least manage the gap, but it looks like Landy's just got so much more pace at the moment than Herbst.
All right, so Dominic, we've seen that Forrest Landy is closing in on this lead, but you mentioned earlier how tricky it is to pass in the middle sector. So I asked Finney this question earlier, but come down to the last couple laps, what corner are you going to make your move in here at Mid-Ohio?
The best, I would think, to make a move would be coming out of turn 1, down into the keyhole, not there, the keyhole, and down into the China Beach turn. Those are the 2 longest straights you have, and especially with these Mazdas, if you get a really draft, you can swing out, and if you time it right, you can make a nice clean move and get yourself up a position.
Yeah, absolutely. So Forrest Landy really trying now. He's working his way through turns 4, 5, and 6, right on the rear bumper of Kyle Herbst, and I think we got ourselves a battle for the lead here, Finian.
Yeah, you saw Landy, he made up, as he's actually starting to blink now, he made up a huge amount of time going through the chicane and the keyhole, so really impressive line compared to Herbst, and Herbst is again starting to lose some pace, and I wonder if Landy's also starting to get into his head a little bit, making him make some errors, as he's got pretty much 2nd place, who's chased him down, trying to fight him for the lead.
Well, we're riding on board now 10th place Richard Spicer in the MX-5 category, and he sees these 2 Mustang leaders approaching extremely quickly. You heard Spicer's tires working before in the last corner, really squealing to try to get that car rotated in the right direction, but he's got those Mustang leaders coming by, and he's just going to pull over and let them go.
Yeah, that's just kind of smart mixed class racing there. You see 2 guys leading in class, they're right behind each other. He's going to do the smart thing and let them on by.
Yeah, so Landy lost a little bit of ground through the last couple sectors of the racetrack, and we'll have to try to regain that speed here. Let's jump back to the MX-5 lead here. Still 0.2 of a second Cook staying well within DJ Alessandrini's draft here.
Yeah, and it looks like Disharuna and Hausil now both fallen off quite a bit. So now it's pretty much down to these two guys up front right now.
Speaking of Disharuna and Hausil, look at this battle here. Look at Kenneth Hausil right on the rear bumper of that 75 car up there through Thunder Valley. Very aggressive driving by Hausil, trying to get that third spot back.
You can see Hausil now trying to make a pass to the inside, maybe in the carousel. I don't know, it looks like he's going to be too far behind. But yeah, it looks like he was almost giving Disharuna a push through Thunder Valley, so I think he feels like he's faster, or maybe he's trying to work together with him and trying to catch these two guys up front.
Yeah, almost a 3-second difference up to second place Kenton Cook. So they have some work to do if they want to get there. But meanwhile, for the lead, a cone gets pushed out wide there. I believe that was the 8 car of Cook that knocked it over, and they'll work their way through the chicane. And this chicane is very fast here, Finian. Sustained speeds of over 75 miles an hour. And we look back up, Battle 4, looks like 6th place in the Mustang category.
Yeah, you see this fight here, and actually a big train of Mustangs here that are fighting for position. You're looking on screen about from 6th to, I believe, 10th place, all within a second of each other.
See Steven out there. Should have had a sponsor other than iRacing on the hood. Would have gotten some TV time here tonight as we see how close he is up through Thunder Valley. Running a little bit wide as Richardson catches the curb on corner exit. Brakes glowing on the nose that 15 car as well.
Yeah, there you see Steven Otta and Michael Monaghan, driver we haven't talked a lot about tonight. There's Dennis Barrett as well, and Brian Saab will kind of round up this little pack here.
Yeah, this group is going to get more and more aggressive as we wind down the time. Just over 10 minutes remaining now. Well, let's jump back to the MX-5s here. Alessandrini and Cook still battling, and Hausil and Disharuna, they've traded places, but are now almost 4 seconds behind the front lead.
And notably, too, the change for 3rd place as Hausil was able to get around Disharuna. Disharuna made a mistake in entering the chicane just as we pull away from them, so Hausil now in clean air, but now 4 seconds back from the leaders. I don't think he has enough time to catch them.
Yeah, probably not, unless he really finds some extra pace in that race car. It was about a second slower last time through, so we'll have to find some pace somewhere. Meanwhile, the Mustang lead has kind of stayed put there at about 9/10 of a second the last little bit here, so Herp's beginning to stretch the lead, but working through some Miata traffic here. That's the 195. Of John Sines, and contact there a little bit. Finian pushes the 195 wide as he gets into the rear of him, and that's just kind of a, I'm coming through, I got to battle for the lead, you got to move now.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a very tough place to make a pass, regardless if it's different classes or not. So you can see that Herb's trying to waste no time because he knows that every second counts with him and Landy.
And here's another battle for 4th. Greg Obadia and Andrew Pilata working now, and Pilata recovering immensely from the mistake on that lap 1, or at least where he got turned there. You see the 195 taking a short way around the carousel, getting out of the way. Some intense battles here with 9 minutes left.
And how about Pilota right now in 5th, trying to chase down 4th? It kind of just makes you wonder if he didn't get into a wreck on the opening lap, where he could have been leading this race by a couple of seconds at least.
Dave Fitzgerald off the racetrack here, Finian. Didn't see where he dropped to. Not sure if that was just an internet blink there or what, but I don't see him.
No, he's down in 20th there.
Ah, thank you. And I guess we'll see what happened here to the number 91 car. And this is a very similar incident to what we saw earlier in the race, and working his way down and just gets wide on the curb on corner entry and just loops it around. Finian is so...
almost saved it there.
Almost had it, but packed it into the tire barriers, and that must have resulted in some pretty severe steering damage. Let's ride on board and see what his steering wheel... Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you can see how much he's trying to go straight by turning pretty much over 90 degrees left there. So I think he figured, might as well just retire here.
Yeah, so unfortunately, Dave Fitzgerald will be retired here in that number 91 car as we head back up to the Mustang lead. 6/10 of a second. And let's just jump back here for another moment. The lead almost swapped between the MX-5s, Alessandrini and Cook. The battle's beginning to heat up here. 7.5 minutes left.
Again, yeah, the same thing we saw last week at some point with the leaders and MX-5 pretty much behind each other, nose to tail the entire race. It was DJ Alessandrini, I believe it was Disharuna as well. No, it was Hausil, yeah. And I forgot the other driver who was involved in that fight, but they were pretty much nose to tail the entire race until the end, but Alessandrini is still leading that fight.
Well, you know what? Lead's about to change here. Forrest Landy has caught Kyle Herbst now 0.2 of a second behind, and now he's well within drafting range, and the Mustang doesn't draft extremely well at tracks like this, but certainly doesn't hurt. You see him get a little bit sideways up off the curb on corner exit through the chicane now. Uses a ton of curbing here, trying to shorten and straighten out this section as much as possible.
And I've noticed, too, that you can see here on the screen how much better Landy is at this first sector And he might be able to get a nose in here to make a pass.
And waiting to get on throttle. He's going to have a great run heading down.
Look at Herbst runs off the track.
Leader wide on the grass on corner exit, side by side for the lead with 6.5 minutes remaining. Forrest Landy going for it.
And he's going to have a little bit of advantage taking the shorter way around through that little kink in the straightaway. They're going to be side by side heading down into turn 4.
And Landy's going to try to outbrake the 89, and he will, but will Herbst be able to fight back on the outside? No, he will not. Force Landy to the lead in the Mustangs.
And I don't think Herbst is going to wait too long. He's better at pretty much the rest of the track compared to Landy. There you see him dive to the inside in the S's.
He took a look and forced Forrest Landy to take a look in his mirror, but Landy didn't go for it. And you'll begin to drive away here. So interested to see if Herbst can chase him back down here. He's definitely better in the farther sectors.
Yeah, so we'll see. He's currently still keeping pace with Landy, but he has to make sure he doesn't lose time in Sector 1 like he did that last time.
Michael Monaghan crashed off track. Sorry there, Finian.
Oh, yeah, and he was running in the top 10 when we last saw him, so, oh, wow.
And here's a replay of the incident. This is the exit of turn 1 here, and oh, looks like the guy in front of him, that was the 14.
Of Stephen Ott.
Stephen Ott, and they make contact as the 05 flies across the racetrack and packs it into the barrier, and that'll be a retirement for the 05. Heading back live now, Landy stretching out the lead just a little bit. And MX-5 side by side for the lead.
You see Cook on the outside of Alessandrini, and now going to be, would have been in the inside as they head down, I believe into the S's here. Here they come. And Cook almost was able to make the pass. I think got a run on the last straightaway, but just wasn't enough to make the pass.
Yeah,
work.
Cook, that was about as close as we've seen him take the lead since the beginning of the race when he got spun out of it. So Kenton Cook really being aggressive now with only a couple minutes remaining. And Greg Obadiah, this is a great battle here, side by side with, I believe that's Pelota there. And oh, look at, who's that? It's that's the 91 of Fitzgerald, who's back out on the racetrack, spun it out.
Yeah, looks like he might retire while he's sitting on the track.
No, he's going to reverse it through the sand trap here and get himself right in the right direction again. Back for the lead again. Herbst is right back to the rear bumper of Forrest Landy and took a look but couldn't quite get there. 4 minutes left.
Yeah, this is coming down to the nitty-gritties. You're going to maybe see some drivers get desperate here.
This is when I wish we had split screen. Ooh. Look at Landy wheeling that car up over the top of the curb, sideways over the rumble strip.
I was going to say, again, like we say 2 weeks in a row, we've had a battle for the lead here coming into the final stages of this race. Right now between Landy and Herbst and Mustang and Alessandrini and Cook in the Miatas.
Through the carousel now, Herbst a little bit wider, but trying to gain that ground back. He's going to have about 3 laps to do it, and he's going to get a little bit of a draft down the front straightaway here and looking into turn 1.
And this is where Landy is better than him in these 2 corners up coming up here. See, Herbst now got a huge run, going to try to make it... Oh,
pushes him!
Try to push him out of the way, wasn't able to do so.
That was an aggressive look. There was only about a quarter of a lane there, but he tried to force his way through, wasn't able to do it.
You see Herbst trying to take a wider apex into the corner here, set up a run down the straightaway.
All right, while we have a brief moment of calm here, I want to ask Dominic one more time here. Let's say you're Forrest Landy, you're leading this race, and you have Kyle Herbst right behind you. What can you do to keep the race car behind you? I mean, you can't really block per se. That's really kind of against the rules. But defensive driving, maybe?
Oh, I think one of the best things for the leader of the class to do would be to, and if they can, try to down a flyer, so put down a qualifying style lap to see if they can make some distance, and their closest pursuer is able to keep with them still then. Let's say run more of a defensive line, because there is a fine line between defensive and blocking, so if you can place your car right where he wants to place his car, then you'll have the advantage going into the corners and much better chance of keeping it behind you.
Absolutely. So that's a great. Some people say the best defense is a good offense here, Finney. That's what Dominic's saying there. As you see, the 4 Forrest Landy running wide, bounces over the curb, takes a huge curb hop there in the carousel, and he'll try to get that car straightened back out again. We're gonna have 2 laps to go here at Mid-Ohio, and Kyle Herbst wants that lead back.
Yeah, you can definitely see, you can see the aggression stepping up pretty much tenfold in these last few laps. And again, right now he's only got 2 more laps to do so to try to get around Landy.
2 minutes and 33 seconds remaining. They're going to head down towards the chicane. This is where Herbst took a look last time. As we head through, will he be aggressive on the exit, looking into the keyhole? He's going to have a great run. Will he try to stick it up the inside? Drives right under the rear bumper of Forrest Landy.
Yeah, again, trying to set up the exit for the straightaway here that they're coming to and use the draft to his advantage. Gets a little bit off. You can see him take some grass. He lost some of that momentum there.
Oh, man. That separates the gap out to 0.4 of a second. Let's briefly head back to the MX-5 battle. Alessandrini has it. Kenton Cook wants it. And I think this is just a matter of time before Cook takes a look.
Yeah, I think he's kind of just biding his time, kind of cooling himself off to make one last charge here in these last 2 laps.
They're through the carousel here. And remember, they're behind the Mustang, so they're coming to 2 to go just now. And that's actually about as close as Cook has been the last couple laps, so we'll stay with these guys. We'll ride on board with Kenton Cook through turn 1.
You can see how much he's just getting slowly a bit of a run on Alessandrini, just nowhere to go.
Here he goes. Oh, took a look for a second. Wasn't able to outbrake the 191. This is almost flat out in the Miatas, actually. He didn't have to break a whole lot anyway. You see Alessandrini sliding, but look to the inside. Here comes Kenton Cook to the inside of the keyhole.
Wow, did a great job of trying to hook the car on the curb and make it rotate, but Alessandrini pinched him in, so he wasn't able to do anything with that.
That was certainly one of Cook's opportunities, where there's about a minute left in this race now.
And looking up to the front of the Mustangs, looks like some gap was made as they had now white flags in the air. Herbst lost a lot of time to Landy, and I think that might be it.
White flag in the air here at Mid-Ohio. One more time around for the second race of the Virtual Mid-Atlantic Road Racing Series. It's been a fantastic race once again. Forrest Landy has worked his way through the field. Started back in 6th place, now leading with 1 more lap left. Kyle Herbst within a half a second, and he might have one more opportunity if he does the rest of the lap absolutely perfectly, but it's going to be hard to do. Meanwhile, the MX-5's DJ Alessandrini, Kenton Cook still battling now. They're wide on the curb. Look at the aid of Kenton Cook working that curb.
Yeah, and again, these guys still have yet to take the white flag, so they got a little bit more than a lap left to make for Cook at least to try to make a move.
And Cook is there. He's there, Finian. Will he give him the bumper? We're heading down through the Thunder Valley now.
I think he might actually wait till the last lap to try to make sure that Alessandrini has less of a chance to pass him.
And through the carousel they go. They'll collect the white flag one more time around for the MX-5 field. Meanwhile, the Mustangs work their way through the backside of the racetrack, but we're going to jump back to the MX-5 lead here because it's going to be close, and I think this is Kenton Cook's opportunity here, Finian.
Yeah, we saw him really good through the chicane last time by, so let's see what kind of run he can get on Alessandrini.
Down into the chicane, almost flat out through here for these cars. Jump the curbs. Can Kenton Cook carry enough speed on the exit to do anything with it? He might be planning to make this move down into turn 4.
That might be what he's trying to do, indeed. You see Alessandrini take a wider line. And here comes Cook now, great exit.
Let's jump back to the Mustangs as out of the final corner. Forrest Landy will take the victory for round number 2. Kyle Herbst will finish 2nd. Jeff Jacobs back there will finish 3rd with some damaged nose on that race car. Andrew Pilato will come home in 4th, but let's head back up to the MX-5's Finian down into turn 4. Here comes Kenton Cook to the inside.
Wow, very
the
late.
191.
He's gonna have to try to I think that's gonna be all she wrote there.
Yeah, that was about as much as you could try. Kenton Cook threw it down the inside and was not able to make it stick, and DJ Alessandrini will take it back. But Kenton Cook might be able to have one more shot at it here, Finian. He's still only 0.4 of a second behind.
He might honestly have to try to move Alessandrini, considering how far back he is. He's really gonna have to make a lunge. But yeah, I think that's all his hopes went into that one move. And it looks like it might not pay out for him as he's only got a few more corners left. He'll make it
some
work.
Smoke and dust in the air from cars in front of him, so the Mustang class is still finishing up their race, but through the last couple corners, DJ Alessandrini won last week, was extremely fast again this week, had to work for it a lot more this time, though, got put back early in the race. Through the carousel for the final time, we'll round the 13th corner, and we'll collect the second checkered flag of the season, is that 191.
Yeah, great job by him. There you see Kenneth Cook there, and then Kenneth O'Seal is going to round out our top 3.
And Chip Tisharoon and Zach Rubin, these guys are really close. There might be one more opportunity here. It looks like Tisharoon's just going to give that spot. Oh, not quite! Through the carousel.
And Rubin's got one more chance here to try to work on the outside of Tisharoon. It looks like he might be able to do so.
He'll take it. Steals away 4th place to Zach Rubin. Excellent finish there for the number 7.
And Tisharoon's slow across the line. Is he out of fuel or something?
I don't think so. It shouldn't be. I think he was didn't have any more spots to give up. So, still some cars on the racetrack. But that is... Oh, that was the final one there. But Forrest Landy will bring it home, and what a great race by that number 4 car. Started 6th, managed to get himself through the mess, and ended up finishing in the top spot there. I want to go back and take a quick look at the swap for position briefly that we had on the final lap between the MX-5 leaders. And take a look at the 8 car's desperation dive bomb down into the corner. Here it is again. Just chucked it down the inside, was not able to make it stick.
Yeah, and if he was able to keep Alessandrini off the line, kind of force him behind him, he might have had a shot there. But he completely overshot the corner there. You see him, and obviously he was trying to do that on purpose, trying to get in line, and that's he felt like that was the best that he could do. for Alessandrini, because Alessandrini, man, he's 2 wins in a row. He's looking like the man to be in that class.
Well, as the rest of the field finishes up here again, your finishing order is on the left-hand side of your screen. Forrest Landy wins the Mustang category, and DJ Alessandrini wins the MX-5 category. That was a wild one. We'll be right back in just a couple minutes to talk to your winners. Stay with us. Welcome back here to Sim TV. We're here with race winner Forrest Landy, the driver of the number 4 Mustang. And Forrest, that was quite the battle you had there with Kyle Herbst throughout the whole race. You passed him with a couple laps to go and an excellent out-braking move. Tell us about that race and the battle you had with Kyle.
Yeah, I never kind of felt so lucky to be that far up the grid. I think I qualified 6th, and I was expecting a battle for 5th and 6th, and then all that conniption went down at the start. And then I kind of felt bad for Kyle as well, because it was just one little mistake he made, and then I slipped by on the inside, and Mid-Ohio is one of those tracks where you can have a really wide car. So I just tried to keep it together and not do anything stupid for those last 5 minutes, and somehow pulled it off.
Absolutely. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the traffic here tonight. It seems like we didn't see quite as much multi-class interaction from the leaders. I believe only up to 20th overall was lapped. So was this easier this week, not having to lap as many MX-5s?
For sure, yeah. It was definitely, the pace I think was actually closer. I don't want to quote me on that, but the pace between the two cars was pretty close. So it took probably more cooperation when you did run into traffic, but it was a little less constant dealing with traffic like it was last week.
All right, well, obviously, congratulations again for us. Another great result for you and a win this week. So congratulations on picking up the checkered flag. And hopefully we'll talk to you again next week.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so now we're going to talk to, looks like, who do we have next? We had Kyle Herbst, driver of the number 89 Mustang. And Kyle, I know you got to be a little bit disappointed with that result after leading the majority of the race, but still a second place result. Tell us maybe what you could have done differently.
Yeah, up the back, the front straight into 4 or 5, the tires just started getting a little bit greasy on me. And, just started pushing a little bit too hard, and I don't know, just went too off, and kind of lost my run. And that.
I want to talk to you also about the start of the race. I don't actually remember where you started. I'll have to get a quick look here. It looks like you started back in the 3rd spot, but you made it a very aggressive move into turn 1 and actually walked away with the lead. So tell us about that start and how exciting it was from the driver cockpit.
Yeah, well, I think Andrew and myself, I thought we were going to be starting on the back straight through the keyhole, and the pace car pulled off kind of suddenly, and I know Andrew was kind of out of shape, and he crossed start finish kind of sideways, and I had a run, and people behind me were pushing me, so had to go somewhere. So figured, try to dive into the inside. And poor Andrew, I mean, he got knocked, I think, in turn 1, but I'll take it.
Second place for Kyle Herbst this week. Thanks for talking to us, and good luck next week.
Thank you.
All right, now we're going to talk to Andrew Pilato there, and driver of the number 96. And Andrew, this week did not really end the way you wanted it to, I don't think, but you certainly had an opportunity starting up front, but a little bit of confusion there on the start. You had to work your way through the field after an early spin, so walk us through that race.
Yeah, so I screwed up big time. I had no idea when the pace car was gonna take off. For some reason, I thought it started in the back straight. So I was crossed up before the green lights even flashed, and then we just got stuck in a big Mustang sandwich, and then I had nowhere else to go but in the middle, and it didn't go well. So after that, it was just basically try to run qualifying laps for 29 minutes and try to catch up, which at least it kind of worked out. I think I was pretty much started at the back at that point, but I'll take it considering.
Absolutely. And again, after your victory last week, a 4th place finish here this week isn't bad at all. So we want to congratulate you on another top 5 result. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week at Sebring.
All right, thanks.
No problem. All right, well, let's move on to, I believe we're going off to the MX5 group now. And here's DJ Alessandrini again, victorious for the 2nd time this season in that number 191 machine. And DJ, you had to work harder for it this week than you did last week. Tell us about that race and the battle with Kenton.
Yeah, Kenton's quite the competitor. He's made a living winning in Miatas and stuff. So I knew I had the fight out for me, but it went well. We were working together, obviously, to try to break the draft. It was a little bit of, I don't know if you guys caught the carnage in the beginning, but it looked like a demolition derby right in the beginning. But that's kind of how Miatas go sometimes. Sometimes you got to put the elbows out.
Yeah, and we noticed that you had a lot of front-end damage, actually. Did that hurt your car at all throughout the race? It looked like you were dealing with it pretty well, but there was certainly significant damage.
I didn't see what the lap times were, but I felt like because when Kenton was behind me, it looked like he couldn't get as good of a run on me as I was getting on him. So I kind of figured he had more aero damage than me. I couldn't see anything looking down the hood of my car, so it still drove fine. It didn't pull to the left or anything.
Well, I'd say it certainly drove fine enough for you to pick up a 2nd checkered flag on the season. And thanks for talking to us. So we'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
No problem. All right, now we're going to talk to the guy that he beat, Kenton Cook, driver of the number 8 Miata. And Kenton, certainly maybe a missed opportunity this week in terms of just missing out on that last lap maneuver. Certainly a well-fought battle there. And you trucked it down the inside, turn 4, just wasn't able to make it stick and came up 1 spot short.
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah, I thought I was going to be able to get it in there, but yeah, I just overdid it a little bit, but it's all good. Yeah, I was just kind of minding my own P's and Q's behind him. We were just trying to get a gap because I don't want to let Kenneth get to my rear bumper again.
We saw a lot of carnage early in the race, and you kind of fell down the order a little bit throughout all of that. But for the rest of the race, did you feel like any of the damage was hurting your car at all, or was it okay from your perspective?
I mean, the car drove straight, but it's hard to say because I wasn't able to really suck up on anyone. But then again, it's just the fact that the cars don't draft as well as I thought they were gonna. But it was certainly frustrating the first lap, getting kind of pushed out of the way. I don't know if he missed his brake zone or brake marker, but yeah, I got turned, and frankly, I got lucky that I didn't get spun. I was able to even come back from that anyways. And when I decided to throw it in on Kenneth again, I was like, well, I'm just gonna not give him too much room.
All right, Kenton. Well,
good fun.
Not a bad result at all. You finished second. I mean, that's nothing to hang your head over. So a very, very good result here tonight. So thanks for talking to us, and good luck next week.
I appreciate it. It's all for fun.
Absolutely. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
All right, that'll round out the interviews here tonight. But Dominic, we saw a lot of action here out of the racetrack tonight. But we head to a bigger racetrack next week with more speed and different kinds of race cars. So what are you expecting next week when we move into a racetrack like Sebring?
One of the biggest factors with Sebring is an old airport runway. It's definitely not as smooth and polished, if you will, as some of the other road racetracks we're going to visit. So one of the things the drivers know, especially the ones that go there for the first time, how bumpy the surface is. So I think with some different cars, challenge there is going to be one, keeping in grip due to the bumpy conditions, and also with the track's also considerably wider there, so being able to, you can run cars, several car with what's wide and it be safe and have it be the norm. So I think it will encourage a lot of more aggressive racing, and also draft will really come into play there with a lot more long straights.
All right, well, thanks for being with us again here tonight, Dominic. But next week we head to Sebring, and we head to a 45-minute exhibition race in the GT3 machinery, Finian. So GT3 is very different, and probably cars that we have a little bit more, well, you at least have more experience driving. So I think next week is going to be the bread and butter for you. But again, as Dominic mentioned, very bumpy racetrack and extremely, extremely hard to drive at high speed without wrecking your car.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun challenge, and just seeing the nice diversity of the cars, and every single one of them is going to be in the same class fighting for position, so it should be a lot of fun to watch.
That changes the interaction as well. You're not going to be racing the same guys you're always racing. You're going to merge both these classes together, and you might have a guy that races in the MX-5s that you didn't expect to race, but next week, GT3 cars at Sebring, 45 minutes. We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching SimTV, and we'll see you later.